And welcome everyone. Welcome to the Instructor Community Call for July 2024. We are going to be looking at our sort of usual housekeeping, if you've been to one of these before, where we have a bit of a roundup of any course updates and that sort of thing. As well as that, we then have a fantastic guest this month. Liberty Munson from Microsoft. Now, Liberty, I actually started chasing Liberty, I think, probably last year at some point, and finally managed to track her down. So I'm really happy that we've got her to be able to have a chat about the Microsoft Applied Skills. Then we will do some of our instructor recognition, and as always, if we end up with some time at the end, we'll have a bit of conversation and also some discussion around any of the resources that we have within the Skillable family. So my name, as always, is Kyle Rosenthal, and as I said, we are joined this month by Liberty Munson. So I'm really happy to be able to have that conversation shortly with Liberty. We're going to get through the bits to start off with so we can get to Liberty. So just a little bit of updates. Now, most of you will be aware of this, is that we still do have some of the courses which were affected by some of the tenant usages and that sort of thing. So there's still a couple of courses that are unavailable. So MB 2010, MB 2030, MB 2040, 240, and MB 910. There's another one that's actually on that list that I neglected one, which is DP 600 still also remains off as well. So we are working with Microsoft to be able to bring these back on board. I constantly get pings from my customers saying, "Hey, when are they coming? When are they coming?" Rest assured, we're trying. We're working in partnership with Microsoft to bring these items back as quickly as we can. But we don't have as yet a date for those as yet. So as soon as you do, though, you'll get an email. Like your operations manager will get an email from our team updating you to say, hey, this is when things are going to be back on board. So so there is we are working behind the scenes to try and bring as much of the content back as we possibly can. Just on that, just so that you are aware of the restrictions that are in place with regards to tenants, the tenant provisioning. So the process has some some password change requirements for certain tenants. So learners may be required to change their password when logging in for the first time. So just make sure you are aware of that, and we do have those in the course notes. As well as that, some of them, the Azure Pass redemption may require some multi-factor authentication to be able to put into place. So just bear that in mind. And again, you'll know this from the course notes. It'll also be something you're going to come across with your students. The best bet is to make sure that when you're talking to your students, that you make them aware of this before they come across it. Like, well, hey, this may happen. It then means that when it does happen, it's not a surprise for them. I always say that you've got to have a contract with your students, and that contract is giving them the information up front that says this is what's going on, and then based off that, if it comes true, then you were right, and that's why you may come across this. The tenants as well, and this is another thing to bear in mind, is that tenants will now be available for 7 days after the learner first launches their lab. So what does this mean? This means that if you have classes that are longer than 7 days, then the tenant will expire before your class is over. So kind of think about that in how you're doing your delivery of your labs, doing the delivery of your classes. If you do have those multi-week classes as an example, it also is something to bear in mind as the instructor. If you are going in and doing some pre-configuration as an example, then make sure that you are doing that within that 7-day period, right? So therefore you're not going in a couple of weeks in advance, doing some of that configuration, and then expecting to be able to walk in a class and have the tenant still there. Depending on what it is, my suggestion, like what it is you're doing as part of your demos and that sort of thing, my suggestion suggestion might be to use some of your MCT benefits. So some of your Microsoft Certified Trainer benefits to be able to use the demo tenants that you have available to use within there. Now, obviously, that's not going to be valid for all courses, but certainly have a look at that, because there might be some of the things that you can set up within there, and then that becomes a more lasting demo that you don't have to keep on setting up as well. Those tenants will also have things like student accounts, so user accounts, that sort of thing, that are already included within there. So an entire environment that you can then have last longer. But as I said, just bear that in mind, that 7-day period. And again, making sure your students are aware of that. If you are going in as your instructor and you know, say for instance, you did something, you triggered them off earlier, just if you exit out of your instance and then come back in with a fresh instance, you should get a new tenant to be able to use for during, say for instance, that class period. But you know, forewarned is foreknown, so that you can then be aware of what's coming up, and again, make sure your students are aware. You know, then they have little to be able to complain about afterwards. You know, if you make sure that they know what's going on, then it means that, you know, you've got that, again, that contract with them about what's actually happening. So now again, like those tenants, that's the thing, that's the process that we're in now. So it's just a matter of making sure that you change your work process, making sure that your operations managers and that's the thing are all aware of that as well, so that when they're scheduling classes, that they're also taking that into consideration as well. Okay. All right. So let's move on then to our time with Liberty. So Liberty, hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Let me just get rid of this so we can then have a little bit more screen space. So over here. The reason I've asked Liberty today is to have a chat about the applied skills program that exists within the Microsoft have created and put out, and just to kind of to see the big picture of that and see how that fits in with our environment. But I guess before we get started, there will be, I don't know how, but there'll be some people who don't know who you are, Liberty. So could you just do a bit of an introduction about, you know, who you are, what it is that you do? I guess what a psychometrician is. This is probably a very common question you get as well, I guess.
Yeah, so I am Liberty Munson. I am the Director of Psychometrics for Microsoft's Technical Credentialing Program. So that covers our certifications, applied skills, and for whatever reason, people forget the Office certifications too. So like anything that is a Microsoft certification or credential is something that I'm responsible for making sure is valid and reliable, so that when somebody earns one of our credentials, it actually means something. So that's what a psychometrician does. Psycho meaning the psychology, metric being measurement. So psychometrician is the psychology of measurement. So how do we ask the right questions in the right way to make sure we're measuring the right skills, so that we have that type of information to tell whether, in the case of a certification or credential, whether or not somebody meets the minimum qualifications to be considered certified or earn the credential, whether it's if we think about our CERT program, it's for, are they qualified in that job role? And then if we think about applied skills, do they have the kind of the minimum level of skills to help an organization solve that particular business problem that the applied skill is designed to assess? So a very simple way to think about a psychometrician is I'm the person that makes sure that the experience you go through when you take an exam or complete any form of skills validation, that it's valid, reliable, fair, and has meaning. So you really, really want a psychometrician involved in any type of exam experience that you go through, because then you know that it is going to have those 4 characteristics, right? Valid, fair, reliable, and meaningful.
And also imagine that as a like what's like, you know, what is part of those pillars has actually changed over time as well. Like not only what we're testing, but how we're testing has changed over time as well.
So one of the reasons why we expanded the certification program to become a credentialing program, why we added applied skills, is because we do think that, so there are opportunities to validate skills in different ways. And there's also an interest in really getting people like more of a skills focus in a very specific way. That's what applied skills is intended to be. It's about specific business problems that organizations are facing that we know that they need those skills. So if you think about the environment, we know there's an IT skills shortage, and we know that there are places where they're just, people need to know you have a very specific skill set to solve that specific problem, and you don't need the certification to do that. And so how do we get people to get the right skills to help organizations on their AI transformation journeys and kind of more quickly? And that's what applied skills is intended to do. It's intended to kind of fill some of those gaps where certification is too big. And so we do think that this program is a very complementary in that as you prepare for certification, there may be some applied skills that actually give you that hands-on experience that will set you up for success when you take the cert. Or once you have a certification, if you really want to, like, I'm going to use the word specialized, but I use that knowing we have a specialist certification and it's not quite the same thing. But it's to like, it really focus on, like, you're an Azure administrator, and now I know that my organization has this specific problem, and I want to show that I have those specific skills so I can do the job, but I want to work on this project with this team. And so that's why I might go and earn an applied skill. That's kind of like the icing on top of the cake of the Azure Administrator certification. So we're trying to build, as a certification and credentialing program, we're really trying to pivot towards this notion of skills first, because that's the conversation that organizations are having. If you go and you talk to anybody, hiring managers, they're talking about skills in a way that they don't really talk about in a way that they're talking about it more than they do things like job role. And so we're trying to find that right balance where we can, like, help people demonstrate they have the right skills so that they can be effective in the jobs that they want and in the projects that they want to be involved in, and as they want to advance their career. So the applied skills is really just intended to help us build out the opportunities to validate your skills in different ways to meet wherever you're at in your career journey.
And so can I get confirmation that this then means that all the other certifications are going away, right?
So the certification program is not going away. I mean, like, this is our flagship. We've been doing this for 33 years. It's not going away.
I thought I'd do it as a headline, clickbait type question.
But if we only have one way to validate skills in a certification, then that becomes a hammer, and not everything fits. Right. So we have created certifications in places where arguably we probably shouldn't have, but that's the tool we had. So that's what we had to do. So what we're trying to do is find the right balance of the certifications. So we have certifications in the right places, and, like, think about where then the applied skills make more sense and build applied skills and fill in some of those gaps. So there's a few more certifications that we will retire because we think that either they don't make sense anymore in this new model, or they may make more sense as applied skills. So you'll see us retire a few more certs, but we're still going to create more certs. We have 3 or 4 of them planned for FY25. But we're right now, because applied skills is very new, you're going to see that our emphasis is building out that portfolio because it's new. And if we want to start, we need to build up that part of the business. So we're not deprecating certifications. It's just where we're at in our business model is that we have this new thing. We need to build out that portfolio. So we're going to focus on that. And then hopefully when we get to 2026, we'll have the credentialing program where it needs to be. And you'll see that right balance between where we think certs should be and where we think applied skills should be.
So so the way that I always kind of picture it, and tell me if I think this is correct from what you just said, is that essentially the certification is going to be the big picture, right? Whereas the credentialing is going to be the particular skills that would complement what that big picture is. So as you said, you're an Azure administrator. Now the Azure administrator certification is a very breadth like certification, that as an example, it covers a lot of content. But then adjacent to that, or complementary to that, is as someone who's actually who's the person doing the job, you need to have this particular skill set, which might be something new as well, but it's not something that's going to be relevant for all Azure administrators, but it's something that a subset of those would need to be able to prove that they could do.
So I think it's kind of a balance, because there are some, I would argue, and using Azure Administrator, I would argue that a couple of the applied skills we have in that space are probably ones that are things that if you're thinking about becoming an Azure Administrator are really good to go out and earn that applied skill, because they're a little core to the role in that, but they're so important to us that we want to get people skilled up in those specific areas so that they can start having an impact and driving Azure adoption before someone might be ready to take on the full Azure administrator role. So with Azure, I think that it goes both ways. Like some of the applied skills that we have today probably are more stepping stones into the cert. And then once you earn the cert, that there's more advanced ones that kind of allow you to show very specific skills that not all Azure administrators would potentially need. So I think that's the way to think about it, is that it's a very reciprocal in nature, and that some of these applied skills could be stepping stones to certs. And then once you get a cert, that kind of help you kind of look in different areas on where you might be able to apply, or as your interests change. And to your point, Kyle, that this applied skills should be something we can get into market faster than a cert. So if there's a new skill set that Azure administrators need, while we're maybe building it up on the exam, or we may choose not to put it on the exam because it's so new and we need to get it into market so much more quickly than we might be able to do on a certification exam. So there's a lot more flexibility around the applied skills that allow us to do those things. But as a result, I think they're going to be much faster moving, because what the goal is to really target them on what we think are true customer pain points and where we need to skill people up. So I would imagine, I don't know this to be true, but this is Liberty just speculating based on how we're thinking about this from a product perspective, is that if a certificate like Azure Administrator, the way it's morphed over the years, but since 2018, when we reintroduced the certification program, we've had an Azure Administrator certification, right? Will some of these applied skills last the same? Like, I think that's now 6 years in, right? I cannot imagine a single applied skill lasting 6 years. I don't think the shelf life of an applied skill can be that long, because of the goal to be really strategic around specific problems that we want to help organizations solve with that skill set.
So potentially, like what's an applied skill now would be in 2 years would be part of a regular certification exam, for the topic, like potentially. So because it becomes like something that's not new and fresh to market at that point, but something that's established within whatever the product is, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's that could be the trajectory of them. We don't we've been doing this since November, so we don't know. This is just the way I'm thinking about it is that, the longest one of these might live is maybe 2 years, because they're so much more focused on solving a very specific problem in a way that the certifications obviously aren't. The certifications are intended to be that breadth play.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I guess as MCTs, what it does is it actually gives us opportunity to be able to basically increase our base of delivery plus knowledge on those specific topics as well, rather than having to redo an entire exam or the entire certification. So there is a question from Robert in the chat, which is so Robert says that he absolutely loves the applied skills, but would like to know if there's any plan to create any mock type content, such as slides, to be able to help in those classroom deliveries. Do you know of any plan along those?
So we are building out ILT for all of these. I don't know much more about that, except to say it is part of the plan. And It should be available, if it's not yet, soon for the ones that are in market.
Okay, great. Robert appears to be happy about that. So just on the applied skills, so the one of the concerns that I hear, and I jokingly threw it away as a line before, is that from MCTs, we're a precious bunch, normally, and I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I'll say that to any of the trainers who just took offense at that, is that one of the things that we're constantly worried about, the fact that of major changes and that sort of thing. So one of the things that I hear quite a lot is that this is going to be this is the death knell of certification now. As you just said, it's not that's not going away. But do you from an MCT delivery sort of perspective, given that the intent, as you said, is to kind of to build up some more of that ILT content, do you see the place of the certified trainer doing classroom delivery of the applied skills content? Is there a place of use in there?
I would imagine MCTs are going to want to train on the applied skills, much like they train on our role-based certifications. And I also think, like I said, I do think some of these applied skills will help somebody on the road to success to earning their certs. So I do think that there's an opportunity for MCTs to think about kind of how you might blend that together to make sure that you're, at the end of the day, from my perspective, is I want people to have the certification. The applied skills, I think they're great. They do serve a very particular need, and they make our program much more robust. But it's the cert because it's really about making sure that you can do a job role. So helping them on the road to success, and maybe they never earn the cert, but at least they're getting some of the skills and practice through the applied skills. And so that's where I think the neat balance is for an MCT, is looking at ways to maybe think about how you talk about both of them as a kind of a more cohesive story to create a better learning journey for your learners, right? I mean, if you think about it, when you look at fundamentals to associate, that step is huge, right? And we know that. And so I think that arguably some of the applied skills help fill that step for people. And so I do think that we're getting better about recognizing what the learner journey is from that novice to the expert, and trying to build a little bit of more of a roadmap and helping people get to that associate level and then eventually to the expert. And I think that's where applied skills can start filling some of those gaps.
That's a really good point. I hadn't really thought about that, using that as that step between, right, before, because you're right, the depending on obviously what the learner's background is, that can be a huge step from fundamentals, which is fundamental, to you go, right, okay, now I actually need to know how to do all this stuff. It's what? So no, that's a good sort of target audience to be able to push through, to take them on that next step. And so with the applied skills then, so obviously, as you said, it's not going to be one or the other. That's not that conversation is completely wrong. It is, it is complementary. And as you said, so that the applied skills will probably be rotating, or have a potentially, we won't quote you on it, but having that sort of that. Okay, I can see headlines now. Liberty Munson says. Go back to the office and people go, "What did you say?" But the potentially has that shorter shelf life, and therefore have the sort of the next technology coming through as well, to be tested and used and have the learners come through. Do you I can't remember what my question was going to be now. I think it was kind of along the lines of where do you see then the applied skills in that 6 years, in the 6 years time sort of thing? Do you do you see it being like a much larger portfolio, or would it be sort of, roughly around the same amount as what we've got now, just the sort of the older topics aging off, newer topics coming in sort of thing? Is that?
So the portfolio right now is pretty small because we just started. Our goal, I think, is to have closer to 50 applied skills in market by the end of June next year. So that's the target. And this is an interesting conversation, and it's kind of a philosophical one for me. So these are some of the things I think about that keep me up at night. But if it truly is like skills focused, Microsoft, we have so many more solution areas and so many more technologies than any other IT certification, any other IT company, right, that has certification program. And I think a lot of people forget that. I manage 50 certifications, and by the end of June 2025, I'm going to have 50 applied skills we're going to add to that. And that's not counting the Office stuff, which luckily Servport generally manages for me. So I think about if we get too crazy with the number of applied skills we have, how do we talk to candidates about that portfolio? So I do have some concerns, but if it's skills focused, there should be more skills than we have certifications, because certifications cover multiple skills, right? So what is the magic number for the number of applied skills we should have? I think that's to be determined. But once we get to that point, I do think that's kind of a stable point. We might tick up a little bit, we might tick down a little bit, but that's kind of the point where we would be. And then as we just things get stale, we remove it and we replace it with something else. So I do think once we figure out what that happy point is for the number of applied skills, it'll be generally stable, kind of like where we've landed with certs. I think the right number of certs we have is probably closer to 40. But and that's where between 40 and 50 is probably where we're going to hang out for a while.
Okay. All right. Well, that's that's it's interesting. And I think you're right. The people do forget the size of the certification that we do, right? There's the certification process within Microsoft, and therefore, as MCTs that we're involved in, because whilst you're doing everything, we have a tendency to focus, right? You'll have your IT pros, you'll have your devs, and then there is some crossover between them. But you're right, and Office, of course, we can't forget Office certification. But so those pillars, as MCTs, we have a tendency to focus within those particular pillars, as opposed to you guiding everything over the top. But I remember when we're just recently when we're in Ignite, seeing the people coming up and seeing when we're trying to sort of guide them into which certification or exam to do, and then looking at the wall of a virtual wall on the screen of this is all you can do, and people going kind of deer in the headlight a little bit, going, I don't know what I'm doing. So which also that's another role for, obviously it's a role for Microsoft to be able to help in, but it's also a role for us as MCTs to be able to guide people as well, because people don't know, you've got learners who don't know where they should be going. So that's kind of part of our role as MCTs, is to guide them in the right direction. Start here. This is the first step upon your journey, and this is how you get to Mount Doom, right? So,
why don't do it all in the eagle from the beginning? That's what my
because there's no shortcuts in certification. You know this. Come on. Thank you very much for this. I really appreciate it. I think that has made things clear. This is Gomez has a question about does earning applied skills have the same impact as the certification?
So from Microsoft's perspective, I think we'd like to say, yes, that's true. I think right now it's so new to the market that we need to be really good and start marketing it better and showing the value to hiring managers and organizations, so that they start to see that they're it's valuable, but it's valuable in a different way. And if the organization needs that particular skill set that it's validating, that is then maybe they look for an applied skill versus a certification, or maybe they look for both, depending on what their needs are. But it is so new to the market right now that I would say, if I'm going to be honest right now, no. But our goal is throughout the next like 6 to 9 months that we start really marketing these and getting the notion of an applied skill more visibility, so that organizations and hiring managers recognize what it's valuable for, and they start leveraging it when they need it, versus, we've spent 33 years building up the cert brand. And so now we just need to spend some time building up the applied skills brand so that it can get to the level of value that we think it can, that it can become.
And I think, like, from as an observer, I think one of the things that the benefits of, like the as that marketing, goes through, and as there's more recognition of it, the fact that we're actually doing skills-based training now means that the days of, like some of the other MCTs that are in, like that are in might remember that, like, from the days when I did, like, the whole paper MCP, MCSE, and that sort of thing was like because it wasn't skills-based, right? Like, because it was like there was no testing along those lines. It was actually sort of real-world testing. And obviously, like, there's been changes to certification to make that more real world as well. But this then being able to prove that particular skill, I think is really valuable, to be able to show, I can do that, whatever it is that, that I'm professing to be able to do, because I've actually been able to show that I can do it as part of the applied skills. So.
Yeah, I agree. And that was one of the key things. And so kind of one of the strategic things, like I said, we're moving more towards skills first as we think about the certification and credentialing program, but we're also trying to get more interactivity in all of our skills validation experiences. So, some of our exams have labs. I was one of the first certification programs that moved away from just multiple choice questions and started introducing more of the build list, drag and drop, and the more interactive item types to get closer to. So it could, if an exam can be fun, it could be more fun than just sitting down and answering 50 multiple choice questions.
Yeah. No. I agree. Like I know when I've done beta, like some of the old beta tests, that's the thing, when it's been like 100 and something questions, and you get to like 75, and it's like, I'm just so overdoing these questions. Like, whatever. And you have to kind of really bring back into focus. So having the different types of questions, like obviously, from your side, gives you the potential to be able to test in different ways, and be able to drop into different bits of knowledge from the exam take a perspective. Oh, it makes it so much more interesting.
I'm glad to hear it.
I hadn't really thought of it in that perspective, but you're right. Like, it makes it much easier to be able to focus and come back to it. So, so Goldman says that thanks to Microsoft for announcing the role-based certifications, because it actually makes life easier. Or made life easier. And Robert has asked for more labs and exams, please. So.
I like that sentiment. I am trying to do as much as I can to make sure that happens.
I think it's also like we've had some discussions internally around, like, sort of like about one of the benefits of doing that, sort of of having the hands-on component within exams as well. And one of the reasons that we've come up with it as being a benefit is we've got some folk who are who have special requirements, or not like learning difficulties or learning challenges, or just learn in different ways and express themselves in different ways. And they find that being able to express their skills by actually doing the things gets them the ability to be able to show what they can do, more than it would just simply being able to recall, like a configuration or setting, or that sort of thing. And obviously we've moved away from just strict what's the default setting for this particular, for this particular item, but having that ability to be able to express your knowledge in different ways, I think, similar to the way as trainers that we reach out to our students in different ways. Like, some people are hands-on learners, some people are verbal learners, some people are visual learners, right? So the exams are starting to reflect that as well, that you've then got ways for those learners to be able to express their knowledge in different ways, which is like, that's a great step forward. So,
agreed.
Yeah. So just a random thing that I recalled from conversations. It's like, that's right, because it is something that I hadn't ever thought of before, and it's probably something that a lot of like a subset don't think about, but also there's a subset of people who that is really impactful for, to be able to have that. So yeah, so very cool. So well, thank you once again, Liberty, for your time. I really appreciate it. It's always insightful when I talk to you, like random conversations about whatever it might be. I always walk away feeling smarter than when I started with. So I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. I'm very happy to answer questions, and I love to talk about this stuff. So anytime you have questions, let me know.
Yep, no problems. I will. I'll take that on notice. So you maybe you may regret having said that, but we'll see. All right, let me get back to our presentation, so we can get into our final sort of throws. So the next part is always an exciting part of what we do, which is our instructor recognition. And with the instructor recognition, what we do is we actually, we mention or call out people who have reached milestones on our platform. So, and their milestones, so we keep a track of when people do, run classes, when they deliver classes where, you've got students, and we keep a count of how many students come through and that sort of thing. And as an instructor, if you've been on one of these before, this is one of my favorite parts, because what it does is it actually gives us an opportunity to be able to show or to be able to give you as an instructor some more of an idea about what impact you have, because we're too close to the classes to be able to see it. Right? So a couple of things. Now, remember, we didn't have a June call, so this is since May. So we've issued 1,907 badges to just under 1,300 instructors. And we had 509 instructors who had their first class on our platform that have delivered since then. And then we've got some other sort of milestones. So 25 classes delivered, 114 of you reached that. 50 classes, 67 reached that. 100 classes delivered, 22. And then we start getting into the rarefied air, right? So we're at 250 classes delivered, and we've had 4 people to do that. And then we've all had Sherry Hovenkamp reached 500 classes delivered. That is a massive amount of students to be able to reach and put through. So, huge congratulations to that. Kristen, I did notice that as well. That it was April. That was me. I should have actually updated that. So you don't take all credit for that mistake. I'll also take some of that as well. So I just couldn't remember. Like in the moment as I was talking, I couldn't remember whether it was like which month. And you've in the next one said May. So. All right, so recent milestones for students reached. Now, this is the huge one, right? Because this is where you put the number on how many people you actually reached in classes, right? Now, this is the thing that, as I said, we don't like, obviously, like how many classes you run, you probably have a good idea of that because you're in the classroom week on week, right? But how many students you actually get, once you start adding those numbers up, this is when you start seeing the fact that you've actually had, like a pretty huge impact, right? So Benjamin, Imran, and James all reached their first students. So had their first level of students that come through, and I think we've got James with us today. So congratulations, James! Really, really awesome work. I'm just looking through the list of names if I've got anyone else that's here. From that list, and I don't think so. So yes, James, congratulations. 100 students reached. So you're like in cricketing terms, you've reached a century, Australian. So Rahul Nandi and Abul Ahmed. I don't know if we've got. We've got Abul. So Abul and actually we've got both Abul and Rahul in the audience. So congratulations to both of you. That you're well on your way to making a huge impact in in your students' lives. And then we've got 500 students. And I don't see Prabjot in the audience, and I probably messed your name up, and I apologize. But 500 students. And then on to Sherry, who was in our previous slide. Sherry is sorry, no, wasn't in our previous slide. So Sherry, who is here today. So Sherry, congratulations on 1,000 students reached. Now again, when you start talking about these numbers, right, as instructors, you don't often realize how many students that you've reached, right, until you start seeing it all in one big number. And Alfonso has reached 3,000 students, and he is in the audience as well today. So huge congratulations to 3,000 students. And I always get sentimental around this point. It's like it's when you look back and you might have a student who comes up to you like 10 years later who you spoke to. Who you set upon their way, 10 years before, and they recognize you because you're the only instructor that's in the room with them, right? In any classroom, you might have between 5, 10, 30 people, whatever it might be, right? So people, after a while, I always find start to meld together. I recognize faces, but I don't recognize names, and I kind of don't necessarily recognize where they are, but the fact that you will likely have one of those 3,000 students come back to you at some point, tap you in the street and say, "Hey, I just wanted to say thank you," or "I recognize you. You are my instructor." That's when you know the impact that you've had on those students. But you've had, whether it's your first student, James, or whether it's your 3,000 students, Alfonso, or anywhere in between. Just know that you've had an impact in people's lives, and you've changed potentially the trajectory of what they're doing, right? And being able to get them a better job, a better position at work, a promotion, whatever it might be, or even just the ability to be able to answer a question because it was something that you've added to the training when you've given them, right? So when you've brought to the table your knowledge and you've given them that, be proud and happy about that, so that then and recognize that does make a huge impact in someone's work life, which can also then reach into their personal life. So a little bit of a little bit of an aside, and I always get a little bit looking back on what it is, like the impacts that you had. I think we don't really take that time to be able to recognize it. So make sure you do take that time, and huge congratulations to our milestone folk for this month. So just a reminder of the instructor offers that we have available for you. So if you go to skillable.com/offers, we do have the option for you to be able to do the free access to prep for your classes, and also to be able to do testing or doing your learning outside of the class. So if you're wanting to prep for something, or if you're wanting to just expand what you're doing and maybe look at a different topic, then you can use that. You can use our hands-on environments to be able to do that. All of the mock lab access, so all of the Microsoft official content labs are available for you to be able to launch up and run through. As well as that, we also do offer the MCT All Access Pass, and that's to our challenge labs. So some of you will see the challenge labs as part of the some of the mock deliveries, the mock lab content that we have. But don't forget that you have access to be able to get access to all. I think there's around 1,300 of those now to be able to run through, and they're across a whole wide, a wide set of topics to be able to expand your learning, your own personal learning journey into that as well. So we offer that same thing for AWS instructors as well. So if you do, if you know any AWS instructors, they also have access to the All Access Pass as well. Just by going to the skillable.com/offers to be able to fill that out. And then obviously the instructor recognition, part of what we've done today, but also you do get badges, and that's the thing that you can then add in and publish and show off, your wares and your skills as well, and what you've done in the classroom, so that you can then do a bit of self-promotion as MCTs as well. All right, knowing that we are up against time, I will open up just if there are any questions that someone had, like that you've been holding on to. Feel free to drop those into the chat now, and then we'll run those through. If there's anything you're wanting to ask or hold on to, or that you've been holding on to, put those in. While excuse me, while anyone's doing that, I'll also just add in our list of the resources that we have available. So make sure you bookmark the skillable.com/instructor recognition, instructor dashboard, and the mock pages, as well as we do have a Slack channel to be able to join as well. Liberty has very kindly dropped in her email address into the chat as well. So lmunson@microsoft.com, and I can assure you that Liberty is really happy to answer questions around the sort of around the sort of questions that you might get around certification, that sort of thing. She is a fantastic resource, and yeah, so make sure you make sure you leverage her with any questions that you might have, yeah, so and she's very happy to be able to answer questions around them. She does live and breathe the certification program, and obviously the applied skills program as well. So make sure you do take her up on that offer if you do have questions. All right. Apart from that, thank you very much for joining us for the July session. If there's any particular topics that you want to have covered in the future, that's something, please feel free to reach out and let us know. Always happy to take on ideas, and if there's something, if there's particular people that you want to be able to have me talk to, again, let me know, and I'll see what I can do about tracking people down. A huge thank you to Liberty for joining for this month. I'm really pleased that we've been able to get you on, yeah, so thank you very much for coming and sharing your time with us, sharing your knowledge, and apart from that, we will see you all next month. Thank you very much.